everyone, Stormy Strike here, and this is a very special video, at least to me. In this video, I'm going to be showing my new camera, some test footage I've gotten from it, and comparing its images to my older cameras. For my YouTube videos for about the past 10 years, I've been using the same Sony camcorder, which you can see here. All considering, this has been a pretty amazing little camera, especially for being inexpensive too. I must have filmed over 100 videos with it. It has incredible zoom and focal range. I've taken it on boats and rafts. I've dropped it on the ground several times and in the dirt, and it still worked just as it did when I got it brand new. So it's really earned its keep. However, I am way overdue for an upgrade. The image quality is not that impressive anymore on this little camcorder. Now I do also have a Nikon D3300 that can do better quality videos, and I have used it for some video clips here and there, but it's not really an ideal model for filming. Instead, I've been using this camera for several years for taking photos, which it does do well. It's not a super fancy or expensive DSLR, but it's a pretty good camera. Now a big part of my life and my job revolve around taking photos and video, especially here on my YouTube channel, of course. So I've been looking into getting a new video camera for a while. I started seriously doing research about a year ago. I had a certain budget in mind, and I was originally planning on getting a new camcorder because I love my old one so much. But then I kept hearing such great things about mirrorless cameras, particularly the Sony a7 III. And I said, you know what, to heck with it, I'm investing in this camera. So I bought the Sony a7 III, the kit lens, and a Sony 70 to 350 millimeter lens. Now this is the most I've ever spent on anything ever, I think, but so far it's been absolutely worth it. The longer I have this camera, the more I love it. The quality and features of it are amazing, and it's going to become my go-to camera for both filming and taking photos. Let's actually get into showing some footage from the Sony a7 III and comparing it to my older Nikon DSLR and Sony camcorder. Let's start off with a simple but very important test for my channel, which is to compare the Sony a7 III to my old Sony camcorder in a situation like I would be doing an unboxing video. I went ahead and had both cameras set to automatic as well, just so I could get an idea of what kind of choices the camera made in this same setting. I also didn't do any color correction on this footage. Right away, I see a pretty drastic difference in quality. The camcorder has a lot of grain, which even if I did manual settings on it, it wouldn't have helped me much because I can't manually control the camera's ISO. The a7 III, on the other hand, had less grain. The image overall looks so much sharper and more polished. It has better contrast and color, even with its white balance on auto. When you zoom in, you can continue to really see the difference in quality. The a7 III is a little out of focus here, but it's still overall a much better image. Obviously, there's no contest here on which camera is going to be better for me to use from now on, just based on this test alone. Now, my camcorder does have one advantage over the a7 III right now, which is that I can get some really close close-ups. That's not to say that the a7 III couldn't do better close-ups in the future. If I get a nice macro lens for it, I could do some really nice close-ups with it too. But the Sony kit lens doesn't have as close of a focal range. However, there are solutions to this. This would also probably not be a problem if I shoot in 4K and then just crop in on the areas that I want a better close-up of. So while this is a minor problem, I do have ways that I can work around it right now. The next test actually directly relates to the last one, because when I figured out that this Sony kit lens was not going to be able to do super close-ups, I wondered how my Nikon lens would work with it, since that lens has a shorter focal distance and length. I went ahead and purchased an F/E mount lens adapter to use that Nikon lens on the a7 III, and that actually worked out pretty well. I'm only able to use manual focus when doing this, but that's okay because I do need to practice doing manual focus more often anyway. But I'm very pleased with the results of using this lens on the a7 III. I did both a film test and photo test with using this lens, and it actually looks pretty good. The image does get a softness around the edges, but I'm really okay with that. That look that it gives off will actually work just fine with a lot of the things I have planned to use it for, and the same goes for that ability to get a really shallow focus with this lens. I of course have plans to film and photograph a lot outdoors, so I had to do some tests to compare the A7 III to both the camcorder and Nikon in an outdoor setting. I'm sorry that these tests aren't that glamorous because they were done in my front yard, but you can get an idea of what I might be wanting to film in the future. One test was done with the Sony camcorder versus the A7 III. I once again put them both on automatic for the most part, and I didn't do any color correcting in post. To no surprise, the A7 III looks overall better. It is a little bit more difficult to compare these because they weren't shot in the exact same position, and I could have zoomed in a little bit more with the camcorder to get that same kind of blurred background that the A7 has. Regardless, the image quality just looks so much better overall on the A7 III. The colors are so much better. It has a quality that looks a lot more cinematic and interesting. I am very, very pleased with these results. Here is also a quick zooming out test with both cameras. Followed by some more tests with using just the A7 III, and I was focusing on, well, focus. I played around with doing rack focuses, and the last one that I did manually actually turned out quite nicely. I did do one filming test with the Nikon, but I didn't really shoot it in a way that was easy to compare it to the Sony A7. But it was nice footage that was actually pretty comparable in quality, at least in that situation. As I mentioned before, the Nikon does actually do some really nice video quality footage. Then I played around with some more tests of the Sony A7, just kind of playing around with focus and moving the camera around and all of that stuff on this model in my front yard. This is one test I was once again very pleased with the results of, and that was testing the Nikon D3300 and Sony A7 III in low light. These photos were taken in the evening in my bedroom, and it was pretty dark in there. These tests weren't perfect because I was doing them handheld instead of with a tripod. They would have turned out a lot better if I would have set them on a tripod. I also can't remember now if I did these settings as automatic or manual. I think it was kind of a mix of some settings being automatic and some manual. Here's a Breyer unicorn with the only light source on her being the little bit of light filtering in from a window in my room. Amazingly, the Sony photo does have less grain and a better range of that highlight and shadow on the unicorn. Just overall looks a little bit better in quality. The same sort of deal happened with these other photos of the unicorn lying on a different backdrop. Just an overall better quality on the Sony. I did some filming tests on the A7 III with horse eyes as the subject, including some 4K footage, which I'll have to try and include in a different video because this one video is not going to be exported in 4K. I also did a little testing with the camera's ability to shoot in 120 frames per second by doing some slow-mo of horse eyes blinking. I know that's not the most interesting thing to do a slow-motion video of, and I really probably should have done the slow-mo on a horse walking or something with more movement instead. But regardless, I do really love the quality of one of these shots in particular. I think it turned out quite stunning. I did do some further little bit of film testing of the horses walking around and stuff, but this footage isn't the greatest, especially since I did have a UV filter on the lens at the time that I didn't figure out until later on was defective, and it was affecting the quality of some of the footage and photos that I took. Lastly, we'll take a look at a few more photos I took with the Sony A7 III. There are some that are a little tainted in quality because of that defective lens filter I just mentioned, but here are some various photos I took with it before I close out this video. In conclusion, I am very pleased with this new camera. I was a little worried because I haven't invested in such expensive cameras and camera equipment before. I usually stick to the more affordable end, but this was a much needed investment. There is one downside to this camera. It is making me really wish I could go out to all the different places I had planned to travel to and go to this year, such as Disneyland and Breyer Fest and Washington. So now I'm really itching to go back to some of my favorite places and get photos and video of nature and wildlife and all of those fun things. Unfortunately, I can't really do that stuff right now, but that does give me something to look forward to in the future at least. For now, I'm going to continue playing around with this camera and getting familiar with it. The majority of my YouTube videos from here on out will probably be filmed with it, and hopefully you guys will enjoy the new quality that this camera will bring to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, have an awesome day, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!